And what else you know about that book?
In 1947, the suspected Roswell crash brings gray aliens into our naive terrestrial bubble. The crash site, having immediate proximity to Trinity, the first nuclear bomb tests, connects our contact with grays to the nuclear blasts. Such theories have been explored at length. Marty McFly is abducted by a UFO during an epic struggle to connect with grays. The grays enter his life at this innocently titled merchant, Blast from the Past. The correlation is obvious when one recognizes that blast from the past refers to the blast from the past, the atomic bomb blasts at Trinity in New Mexico that catapulted mankind into the atomic age and instigated contact with the grays. This first contact takes place in 1947. The chronological connection is unveiled by an albino vermin with a suspiciously pronounced presence during Marty's encounter of the Greys at the blast. Roger Rabbit is set in 1947. This being the year that Greys are discovered near the blast in Roswell, New Mexico. To solidify that 1947 is indeed being pointed to, we will note that Marty is directed to this information of Greys at the blast by this man, Charlie Fleischer.
Miami. What did you just say?
I said I wish I could go back to the beginning of the season. Put some money on the Cubbies.
What did you just say?
Fleischer, the actor, is the voice of Roger Rabbit, again taking place in 1947 along with the Roswell crash. Our Trinity explosion reference, Blast from the Past, is validated when we scrutinize the hidden hand of its cleverly obscured logo. 60-degree increments split the decade markers on the timepiece. By drawing in the conveniently covered digits, we extrapolate the realization that the blast being referenced is indeed the Trinity explosion, as the hand points directly to 1945. The date of Trinity, couple 1945 with the accentuated word blast, and suddenly we see the light. In the earliest instance of Back to the Future scripts, we uncover further evidence of strong nuclear gray contact suggestions when we learn that the space-time distortion vehicle was intended to be placed at the site of a nuclear explosion in order to trigger the opening of the Stargate. The time machine, as a mechanism for traversing dimensions, is synonymous with entering higher states and thus encountering higher life forms, or grays. So, it is fitting that this machine was intended to be activated at the site that pioneered nuclear explosions, where gray higher intelligences are said to have been first found. Nuclear higher intelligence contact is relived by Marty McFly as the time machine crashes into the Assembly of Christ Church, a location predated by the cinematic showing of The Atomic Kid. The leap to nuclear weaponry is accompanied by contact. Of note is how mushroom clouds and conventional contact protocol via craft abduction share an apparently sacred geometric archetype, further fusing contact with alien semi-deities with the deity impersonating act of atom splitting. John F. Kennedy, in a letter to the CIA on November 12th, demands records revealing intel pertaining to the suspected alien presence on Earth. Marty traverses this atomic stargate to contact higher life forms on November 12th. In front of the store where he learned that gray contact was made from the atomic blast, the very same information that JFK sought on the very same day, November 12th. JFK's thirst for this knowledge is accounted for by strange forces which place a bust of his head at this scene where the information he sought is actually discovered. The blast from the past is where the Greys tethered a terrestrial connection. 10 days after JFK sought this information, he was killed. On that very same day, an atomic blast test exploded in the desert of New Mexico, its codename Grays. At a dinner with the McFlys, Marty expresses exceptional interest in men from space.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic. This is where Ralph dresses up as a man from space.
He then seeks directions to Doc Brown's house.
Listen, do you know where Riverside Drive is?
It's the other end of town, a block past Maple, east end of town.
Where the scientist has just conceptualized our nuclear gray contacting mechanism.
Standing on your toilet and you were hanging a clock and you fell and you hit your head on the sink. And that's when he came up with the idea for the flux capacitor, which is what makes time travel possible.
Only to find out that the process was carried out on...
Block past Maple, that's John F. Kennedy Drive.
Who the hell is John F. Kennedy?
Mother? Block past Maple, that's John F. Kennedy Drive. Block past Maple, that's John F. Kennedy Drive. 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 Drive. That's John F. Kennedy Drive.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Imprisoned in the underworld by his sons Zeus and Hades, none are prepared for the wrath of Kronos. Father of the gods, King of the Titans, Destroyer of the universe. When the Titan King rises, the world will end. Wrath of the Titans.
In Greek mythology, Kronos is the god of time. He once ruled the universe until it was stolen from him by Zeus. Christopher Lloyd is our Zeus resonator, and he battles Kronos' clock tower in the synchromistic epic Back to the Future. The Greeks' story said that Kronos was defeated by Zeus by way of his lightning bolt. Christopher Lloyd kills the clock tower with a lightning bolt, and since Kronos was the god of time, or the titan of time, it seems fitting that he would be represented by a gigantic, inanimate, but still antagonistic clock tower. Kronos was also a god who embodied limitation, darkness, death, and the color black. He was almost always depicted carrying a Sith, which is why his modern-day adaptation, the Grim Reaper, Death, also carries the Sith. The theme of escaping death is exemplified by the construction of a time machine, which is why Lloyd builds one, because Lloyd is Zeus, and Back to the Future is the story of how Zeus defeated the god of time, limitation, darkness, and death, Kronos. Kronos was the leader of the Titans, and his death marked the end of their reign over the universe, which humanity still celebrates to this day by lighting a gigantic torch, the Olympic torch, which honors the victory of the Olympian gods and their rise to power in the cosmos. This is why the leader of the Olympian gods, Zeus, lights a gigantic torch immediately after symbolically killing the leader of the Titans, Kronos, which signified the victory of the Olympian gods. Today, we also celebrate Zeus's victory by the running of the torch, which Christopher Zeus Lloyd also does, immediately after killing Kronos. Take a look at the strange nature in which Christopher Lloyd blazes down this trail of fire. He is clearly running as if symbolically gripping and hoisting something in his hand. His arm is not only awkwardly raised, but his hand is cupped and held in a position that defies all logic, unless you take into account that he is acting out the Olympic torch run, if only subconsciously, which makes perfect sense since he is running down a trail of fire. These two acts, the lighting of a gigantic torch at the Temple of Hera and the subsequent running of the torch, are still and were always performed in honor of Zeus's victory over Cronus. So is it only a coincidence that Christopher Zeus Lloyd performs these acts immediately after striking down a giant clock with a bolt of lightning, while simultaneously transcending humanity's most insurmountable limitations, those of being trapped in time? Is this a reenactment of the Olympic ceremonies and the Olympian mythology of the rise of the Olympian gods? After a closer look, you will see that it clearly is. According to the Greek myth, Zeus is not alone during the battle. He had the help of his two brothers, Poseidon and Hades. Zeus is the personification of the planet Jupiter, Cronus the personification of Saturn, while Hades is the personification of the planet Pluto. If this is truly a reenactment of the Olympian rise to power, then we should find both Hades and Poseidon present at the scene. Luckily, Hades is so clearly represented by Marty McFly that it is almost laughable. We learn that Universal Studios head Sig Sheinberg advocated a replacement of the title Back to the Future with Spaceman from Pluto, referring to Marty McFly, who was even supposed to state the line, "I am a spaceman from Pluto," which would have overtly stated his Hades-Pluto synchronistic entrainment. In this scene, Marty McFly is identified as a godlike alien supremacy from, of course, Pluto.
Hey, Doc?
Then there's the introduction of Marty McFly, where for the first time ever he enters into frame to garner first impressions from an estranged audience, only to draw the audience's attention directly to the element plutonium, which is directly named after the planet Pluto. He is introducing himself, not just as Marty McFly, but as an earthly personification of the planet Pluto, and thus the god Hades. Each of the three brothers had a special weapon which they used during the battle against the god of time Cronus. Zeus had his lightning bolt, Poseidon had his trident, Hades had his helm of darkness, which made him invisible. In the second film, Marty becomes the Invisible Man, wearing a black hat and an all-black disguise in an attempt to be unseen, which he achieves for a large portion of the film, whereby he walks about in broad daylight and plain sight but is never spotted. Invisibility is his power. Marty is also the only character in the entire trilogy to ever actually turn somewhat invisible. Thus we have the two brothers, Zeus and Hades, fighting against Cronus Clock Tower. The scene has come together quite nicely. If only we could find the last piece of the puzzle, the third brother, Poseidon, somewhere. This scene happens moments before the clock tower fight scene. Hades is doing his invisible thing, and there he is. The last piece to the Olympian god puzzle falls solidly into place, and our Olympian trio materializes, ready for a reenactment of the transition from the age of Saturn, Cronus, to the age of Zeus, Jupiter. In the midst of the battle, we are hit with a remarkable sync event. This exploding clock is followed up instantaneously by the flashing of the commonly associated alternative name of Cronus Saturn, L. Watch as Cronus announces his presence with the exploding clock, and then the flashing of his name across the screen, roaring through the very fabric of the film to identify himself as the deity associated with all the time travel, clock tower madness. This ritual represents the end of the reign of Saturn, which is why it takes place late at night on Saturday, the end of the day of Saturday, the end of the day of Saturn.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Okay, all right. Saturday's good. Saturday's good.
Jupiter is the astrological ruler of the zodiac signs 12, Pisces, and 9, Sagittarius, which is why, amidst the celebration, Zeus Jupiter Lloyd stands inside the astrological symbol of the 12th sign, Pisces, while just over his left shoulder is a giant 9, drawing our attention to the 9th sign, Sagittarius, whose symbol is an arrow. Luckily for us, this giant 9, curiously enough, is made out of an arrow.
I keep it simple for these stupid cats, claiming you knew the facts, but in reality, you were trapped. Jesus Christ was a gangster rapper. They killed him, then he came back and made a platinum album. The path that travels like the dragon shadow, invisible to CIA camera angles. They got a file on every rap group. They killed the last man who had proof. They after me for information that I have too.
This is the same genuine, magic, authentic crystal used by the priests of Isis and Osiris in the days of the pharaohs of Egypt, in which Cleopatra first saw the approach of Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and so on and so on. Now, you'd better close your eyes, my child, for a moment in order to be better in tune with the infinite. We can't do these things without reaching out into the... For a moment. You better close your eyes, my child, for a moment in order to be better in tune with the infinite. For a moment. You'd better close your eyes, my child, for a moment in order to... With the infinite. Close your eyes in order to be better in tune with the infinite. Close your eyes.
This is it.
Specific foresights delivered to Marty in the form of this magic manuscript enable him to open a stargate through the fabric of space-time, which arouses our suspicions as to the nature of its acquisition. It becomes strange when we realize he obtains it in front of this, the Eye of Horus, often intimately associated with mankind's ascension process, or mankind's connection to otherworldly high intelligences. Thus it becomes suspicious when it takes such a profound interest in essential events preceding Marty's transdimensional adventure. We might even infer that the Eye of Horus was responsible for giving Marty the key to opening his time travel stargate. The ascension process, as well as the Eye of Horus, is often intimately associated with the pineal gland, almost exclusively associated both etymologically and optically with the pine cone. Marty McFly graciously interacts with the pine cone, or the word pine, by sitting on top of it, just before receiving his stargating scripture. Here he is, sitting on top of the word pine, about to be contacted by higher intelligences via the Eye of Horus, via his pineal gland. The pineal gland is also called the third eye, which is very convenient because directly in front of him are the words the, third, and then a picture of an eye, or the third eye, which appropriately foreshadows his polymorphous pilgrimage and strengthens the sync association of interdimensional travel as a third eye involving process of spiritual ascension. Not content at merely overseeing the events of that day, these otherworldly higher intelligences return to again meander the backdrop of Marty's manuscript acquisitions. With his third eye submersed in a rainbow, Marty ventures to the now revamped but geologically identical storefront to again obtain future foretelling scriptures from mysterious extraterrestrial forces.
See this book? This book tells the future. The information in here is worth millions. Gray's Sports Almanac. Gray's Sports Almanac. Gray's.
The Greys have also been intimately associated with the Eye of Horus, two symbolic equivalents to higher consciousness or higher intelligence that Marty happens to interact with. Take special note and consideration of how the word grays is surrounded by stars, further eliciting the celestial nature of its associated entities, the grays. Something very strange happens as Marty is first introduced to the book. This book that is brought to him by grays is surrounded by stars and is being handed to this Stargate quester. At the very moment that it first touches his fingertips, it becomes completely surrounded by images that document humanity's most profound initiation into interstellar travel or cosmic endeavors, Apollo's missions to the moon, as if to foreshadow Marty's own personal journey into the non-local, extraterrestrial realms of existence. The operative alien representative word, grays, in fact makes direct contact with the most iconic of the Apollo photos just at the moment Marty is receiving the book for the first time. The sound ah is a portal to higher consciousness. Human beings who seek God will look to the stars. This causes an elongation of the throat and vocal cords, a position conducive to producing the sound ah. Ah in Hebrew is aleph and hey. Aleph meaning the most high or divine. Hey means the window of the breath. Ah means the window of the breath that lets in the divine. Perhaps this is why meditation masters claim that meditating on the sound ah connects one with spirit. Ah is the sound we make to accept medicine. Medicine flies under the flag of the caduceus because it originates with medicinal and theogenic drugs that caused spiritual journey. Reaching higher consciousness means reaching higher states of awareness. Every time our consciousness grows, when we become more aware of something, we say, ah.
The dust we shall return.
Even when thinking or speaking about divinity, we are forced to say ah, because the word is ingrained in all of our words for God. Laughter, our greatest expression of joy, is an experience of spiritual growth. That is why laughter is pronounced ha, 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 more recently as LOL or LOL. Ha 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 LOL reflects perfectly Jehovah Elohim, both gateways to divinity or joy. Humans intuitively understand that laughter is the best medicine. Higher consciousness lies in the stars. Looking at the stars forces us to say ah because of the position of our neck and throat. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is the search for an artifact that grants powers of Christ. The men encounter a white rabbit, then enter the rabbit's hole, where they find writing on a wall by
Joseph of Arimathea,
who tells them,
find the Holy Grail in the castle of...
Triangle, square, pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, nanogon, decagon. One of these shapes is not like the others. The O in octagon is pronounced ah. The Great Pyramid is an octagram, just like Akhenaten or Amen or Amen-Ra. That is why our old shamanistic medicine men told us to meditate and say ah. The Stargate of Ah is the opening of the mouth to say ah, so as to receive medicine from your witch doctor or shaman. Shaman were Amen. The modern shaman is a doctor. While shaman were both medicine men and spirit guides, the doctor is also both medicine man and spirit guide. Doctors oversee our entrance into life on Earth. They help to prolong our stay on this physical plane. Then they oversee the exit of our soul into the next realm. The doctor, without even knowing it, is the spirit guide of today, which is why they are associated with the caduceus. Humans are hardwired to know that ah takes us on a spiritual journey. That is why if someone were to tell you to say ah, you would immediately think of a doctor.
Off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Used by the priests of Isis and Osiris in the days of the pharaohs of Egypt.
Hello. Before I became the omnipotent and all-powerful ruler of Oz, I was a magician. You may be asking yourself why, at this moment, at the time of your victory, I would show up. I just wanted you to understand how I managed to bring this off.
Over the rainbow or into color is a metaphor for stepping into the light, being able to see new parts of the energy spectrum, becoming aware of new information that has been floating around us all along. Dorothy steps into the light of color, her metaphorical ascension. She gets there by journeying through a metaphorical wormhole, an earthbound wormhole impersonator, Tornado. She steps into the land of enlightenment. The sound we make when we suddenly become enlightened is ah. That's why the Lord of the land of enlightenment is Oz. Christopher Lloyd is Oz in The Witches of Oz, Lord of the Land of Color, Clarity, or Enlightenment. He plays this character in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where our protagonist journeys a tunnel wormhole and enters into the Land of Light, the Lord of that land being Christopher Lloyd.
Since I've had Toontown under my jurisdiction, my goal has been to rein in the insanity.
Macaulay Culkin journeys the wormhole tunnel, then becomes engulfed in and enters the Land of Color, traversing the rainbow, stepping into the spectrum. The Lord of this land is Christopher Lloyd. He is the Lord of the Land of Color because he is Zeus, Jupiter, the land over the rainbow. The Wizard of Oz is strangely connected to green octograms that decorate his home of Emerald City. Ground Zero is the location of Emerald City in The Wiz, and is home to a giant green octagon, the base of One World Trade Building. Christopher Lloyd's Oz movie takes place in New York City. Ground Zero is bordered by two parallel streets called West and Greenwich, or Green Witch of the West, another overt Oz resonance. The octagram is worn by Oz Lloyd in the movie DuckTales, where he hovers above an airplane that crashes into two towers, which then collapse. The ensuing scene eerily reminiscent of 9/11. Immediately after the carnage, he lands atop a pyramid. Green octagons are seen prominently on display as the wizard conquers flight to become lord of the sky. Sky god Zeus is an eagle in myth. Zeus, as god of all gods, is synonymous with Egyptian god of all gods Horus, both avian sky gods who rest on mountaintops. Zeus atop Mount Olympus is the same as Horus atop the pyramid. They are both the same god. On the dollar bill, they are portrayed in green, Zeus eagle and Horus atop the pyramid, which is concave and thus octagonal, or a green octagon, surrounding our declarations of monotheistic authority. Christopher Lloyd is Zeus. That's why his tunnel accesses an observatory of heaven that sits on top of a mountain and sports a giant green octagon, on the underside of which is a large mural centered around an image of Zeus. Macaulay Culkin is sent into the land of color while standing on an octagram. Moments ago, he passed through this tunnel that leads to the observatory. Above his head is a giant mural focused around Lloyd, paralleling the observatory's mural focused around Zeus.
omnipotent and all-powerful ruler of Oz.
Since I've had Toontown under my jurisdiction,
I am the Page Master.
The observatory's origins are less than innocent. Designed by John C. Austin, an architect exclusively devoted to constructing free Masonic temples. He is responsible for the Hollywood Masonic Temple, the Shriners Masonic Auditorium, and LA City Hall, an obvious phallic obelisk honoring Horus, and featured on the cover of a movie the trailer of which foreshadowed the Dark Knight Theater shootings. Suspended from the ceiling on the underside of the octagon is the observatory's focal piece, a Foucault pendulum. It rests underneath the mural of Zeus. These scientific devices measure the rotation of the Earth. Each Foucault pendulum will take a specific number of hours to complete one rotation, depending on where on Earth it is located. For the location of the Griffith Observatory, the rotation period is 42 hours. Thus, we have 42 suspended from an image of Zeus conjoined to an octagon. Considering the scenario played out with the mural of Lloyd and the Griffith Park Tunnel and his previous Zeus associations, we can connect this Zeus green octagon to Lloyd sitting atop the Giza Octagon Stargate Pyramid in his Zeus Eagle form while wearing a green octagram after just observing a plane crash into two towers as one did at the revealing of the Ground Zero octagram. Aleister Crowley meditated inside the Giza octagram and channeled the divinity Awaz, pronounced Awaz, furthering the immutable connection between channeling divinity and the audible sound Ah, appropriate considering the human body is anatomically designed to say Ah when we look up at the stars of heaven, where we believe God to be. To meditate on and speak the word Ah is to open the window for the divine spirit. The Stargate of Ah is the window that lets in the divine. When Dorothy comes home, she tells of her journey through the land of enlightenment, while quietly in the background, the divine Oz enters in through the window.
Doesn't anybody believe me?
Of course we believe you, Dorothy.
Oh, but anyway, Toto, we're home.
I bring you!
So he lays this book on me.
What is it, Paul?
Looks like an airplane. Well, wait.
That ain't no airplane. Look.
Becoming black ships, skull and bone type of action. Your time is up, give in to your masters. Becoming black ships, skull and bone type of action. Your time is up, give in to your masters.
The time machine is quite literally an advanced spaceship from another dimension, and Doc Brown, as perceived by the peoples of the era, would be an advanced human being operating a UFO from another dimension, quite literally. Thus, tunnel, the Griffith Park Tunnel. In Lloyd R. Christbearer Part 1, we introduce the theme of the tunnel as being a metaphorical representation for experiencing the world with limited perception, reaching the end as being representative of significant quantum leaps of understanding. We noted Christopher Lloyd is consistently positioned at the tunnel's exit to be dramatically discovered by distressed protagonistic tunnel goers, validating his candidacy to represent the light, or the truth that is carried by higher consciousness or higher intelligences. Let's not forget previous sync associations of Holy Man Christ-bearer Lloyd to substratospheric messianic force Jesus Christ and God of all gods, Mount Olympus's Zeus, which fits ever so nicely as Marty travels in fear down the tunnel of limited perception to be saved by the light, the Christ, Zeus, interdimensional higher intelligence, UFO operating Christopher Lloyd.
Steal my stuff.
Keep in mind that Marty's whole purpose for being in the tunnel in the first place is to reclaim the Gray's alien manuscript from Biff. He has lost his connection to the alien high intelligences, and once he firmly reestablishes his connection with the Greys by reclaiming the manuscript, a UFO appears at the end of the tunnel and abducts him, ever so appropriately reinforcing the sync link between interdimensional pineal gland-induced travel and contact with higher consciousness representing extraterrestrials.
All right, Arnie. Let's find Jennifer.
I don't believe it. I live in Hilldale. This is great. Way to go.
Marty, stay here. Change clothes. If I need you, I'll holler.
Oh, come on, Doc. I want to check out my house.
We can't risk you running into your older self. Come on, Arnie. Let's go.
In a brief time-traveling stint of his own, Biff, clad in checker pleats, is escorted to the wormhole car in a ridiculously over-checkered checker cab that adorns the word Luxor. A quick Google image search reveals a puzzling and unmistakably obvious association of the word Luxor with celestial contact-evoking Stargate monuments originating in ancient Egypt, and being intimately connected to Eye of Horus powers also associated to Marty and stargating. The Eye of Horus delivers Marty the essential ingredients for opening a Stargate, while this night sky illuminating Egyptian pyramid escorts Biff towards the same stargating fate.
Be careful, old timer. There's a rough neighborhood. Right here.
Biff's only encounter with time travel is not just accompanied by the Stargate Pyramid, but also happens to come immediately after he finds the gray alien representing Sports Almanac. We can observe the intuitive connection between traversing tunnels, entering wormholes, walking into the light, and alien abduction, all interchangeable representative elements of the non-local journey of spirit, and all experienced by Marty culminating at a particular tunnel of great interest. Most curious indeed is the Griffith Park Tunnel, and Christopher Lloyd's affinity for loitering near its exit. He does not merely star in movies featuring this tunnel, nor does he even merely interact with the tunnel. He always plays out the same story of being found directly at the tunnel's exit. In one instance by a man chasing after a white rabbit accompanied by the Scarlet Woman, operating a checker cab down the rabbit hole towards salvation. The very same rabbit hole traversed by Marty while pursuing the Alien Contact Almanac, which he happened to first discover on display here, adjacent to stargating paraphernalia. The same white rabbit being pursued by our other Christopher Lloyd discovering Griffith Park Tunnel adventurer. Marty is being told to pick up the book and follow the white rabbit. Strange how we have Marty standing before two items that have both been used to lead to Christ at the end of the Griffith Park Tunnel. Marty, whose first supernatural contact episode was with the Eye of Horus, is now saved by Christopher Lloyd below a Spirit of Horus representing Egyptian obelisk, which is the cornerstone to the landscape design of the Griffith Observatory, which rests directly on top of the Griffith Park Tunnel. Lloyd's tunnel consistently syncs with embarking on the non-local spiritual journey, and it was actually built in order to access an observatory of the heavens that houses a monument honoring the Spirit of Horus. The Spirit of Horus Tunnel is also featured momentarily in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
Dr. Buckaroo Banzai, perhaps you can explain yourself.
The film begins as Buckaroo is going to pilot the world's first interdimensional traveling car, much like his Back to the Future counterpart, Marty McFly. Banzai shows up fashionably late due to the fact that he is in the middle of performing surgery.
May I have the curved Yasugiel, please?
It's not here, Dr. Banzai.
Let me have the straight one then.
Dr. Banzai is using a laser to vaporize a pineal tumor without damaging the quadrigeminal plate. Subcutaneous microphones. Dr. Banzai is using a laser to vaporize a pineal tumor without damage. Pineal. Dr. Banzai is using a laser to vaporize a pineal tumor without damaging the quadrigeminal plate.
Brain surgery on the pineal gland. Another strange parallel to Marty McFly. After interacting intimately with the pineal gland, he pilots mankind's first successful interdimensional journey, helping us draw the same conclusions about pineal gland-induced ascension that we saw displayed in the epic of Marty McFly. Highlighted on Banzai's car is the value 88. It is overtly plastered on the hood, doors, and license plate. The car itself is even named the HB88.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
With many questions to be answered, we jump to a scene where Banzai begins pursuing this white van that features a haloed mountain or Stargate type logo. And he ends up chasing the van through the Spirit of Horus tunnel. The very same tunnel that Marty chased the Gray's Alien Almanac through. Inside the van is one of the parts that allows his car to function properly and travel hyperdimensionally. Without it, he cannot open wormholes. See that we have two men traveling through the Spirit of Horus tunnel, both striving to reconnect with higher intelligences or with their ability to contact higher intelligences. Marty must reclaim the Gray Alien Sports Almanac so that the alien UFO, operated by Christ Lloyd, will connect with him, while Banzai must get his hyperdimensional car part from the van with the Stargate logo. The kicker is that the van with the Stargate logo at the end of the Spirit of Horus tunnel is operated by Christopher Lloyd, playing an alien.
And cough up the crucial missing circuit. I bring you!
Michael, what was it I used to say was the #1 rule of leading an effective campaign staff?
Don't think you know all the answers.
Don't think you know all the answers.
Lloyd is most famous for his role as DB Doc Brown in the Back to the Future trilogy, in which he is summoned to capture lightning and is obsessed with measurements of electric current. Lloyd also enters popular consciousness with his role as Uncle Fester, a character said to have been struck by lightning and able to conduct electricity. The popular arcade game Electrifying being inspired by Fester's flair for the electromagnetic.
I told you one stick was enough!
1986 Hollywood film Miracles, Christopher Lloyd stars as Harry, shown here in a trailer not short on lightning bolts.
Miracles!
Zeus, as the god of all gods and ruler over the sky, is symbolically portrayed as an eagle, which also rules the sky. In the 1990 film DuckTales, Treasure of the Lost Lamp, Lloyd voices a villain who systematically morphs into an eagle and rules the sky. Here we see Lloyd Christ as a Zeus eagle, landing atop a Christ consciousness representing Egyptian pyramid. The Zeus eagle atop the pyramid being yet another Stargate logo in a long line of Hollywood Stargate logos used to present media that is intended for mass consumption. Contact at Jupiter represents the death of the limited self and the rebirth into oneness. Wednesday Adam reads a note from Uncle Fester, played by Christopher Lloyd, then pronounces him dead, all in training with the death of our Lloyd and Zeus resonating eagle.
And very lonely, you will understand. Love, Uncle Fester. He's a dead man.
Go!
It's an American bald eagle.
But aren't they extinct?
They are now.
In the 1990 film Baby Geniuses, we see Christ Lloyd atop a pyramid, and this time also residing between two flanking pillars. The space between the two pillars of Hercules marks the road to Atlantis, or the point of the risen Christ consciousness. Behold the Page Master, pitting Christopher Lloyd glowing with divinity emerging from the space between two pillars, indicating that he is the risen or resurrected Christ consciousness, complete with his title, Christ-bearer Holy Man. Again, Lloyd is residing in the space between two pillars as he voices the villain from the animated film Anastasia. The pillars representing duality, while the space between them represents oneness, the oneness that is higher consciousness. In this telling image, Christ's head is coming into contact with the sun, which itself has enveloped a pyramid-type monument. The luminous light emanating from the space between the pillars is another indication pointing to rebirth. The word Anastasia is a Greek word that in fact means resurrection.
I have so many fond memories of Paris. Excellent.
Ancient empire of Hittite, a mythical god named Pahasasa is said to be ruler of lightning and thunder. Pahasasa, later adopted by Greek mythology, became known as the winged horse Pegasus, a word derived from Pahasa of the Luwian language which was spoken by the Hittites. Pahasas in Luwian means lightning. Pegasus in Greek mythology was said to be in charge of carrying lightning bolts for Zeus. Christopher Lloyd, our Zeus resonator, summons Pegasus to help him kill Anastasia. Pegasus is derived from Pahasa, which means lightning. Thus, Christopher Lloyd summons lightning. In the 1993 film Angels in the Outfield, Third Rock from the Sun E.T., Joseph Gordon-Levitt rides his bike past an inconspicuous Stargate archetype. Soon afterwards, he prays to God for help and is answered by Christ Lloyd.
God. If there's a God.
Yes! Yes! Amazing play. I love it when they come from above like that.
From above?
The sky deal. It's a good entrance for them.
You mean you saw them?
The angels?
Angels?
Of course I saw them. They're with me.
Who are you?
Just call me Al.
Why me?
You asked for help, and we're here.
God. If a God.
You asked for help, and we're here.
If there's a God.
Al is also the name of one of the most famous works by 20th century occultist Aleister Crowley. He wrote Liber Al, also known as the Book of the Law, claiming it was dictated to him by a god whom he referred to as his guardian angel. Another of Crowley's famous works, Liber Oz, the Book of the Goat, resonates higher consciousness at Jupiter as the land of Oz resides somewhere over the rainbow. Rainbows being formed when light is refracted through a prism at an angle hidden in the alchemical symbol for Jupiter. The Land of Oz, residing over the rainbow or at Jupiter, again resonates Crowley in Ozzy Osbourne's album titled The Blizzard of Oz, featuring a song called Mr. Crowley. As in Liber Al, Liber Oz has Crowley supposedly dictating from a god. Christ Lloyd, having played Al, also plays Oz, or Pan, as the Wizard of Oz, in the made-for-TV series The Witches of Oz.
Entertainment presents Christopher Lloyd as the Wizard of Oz. The Witches of Oz.
Oz again sync-attracts Christ consciousness in Percy Shelley's 1818 poem Ozymandias, where Ozzy is proclaimed the King of Kings, a title reflecting Zeus's god of gods.
Perseus, I need your help.
This is for gods, not humans.
You will learn someday that being half human makes you stronger than a god.
You're sweating like a human. Next, it'll be tears.
Not quite.